Hello, welcome to the Better Future Leaders Report. I'm Mark Bergen, the founder of Better Future, and joining me is Will Knight in London. How are you, Will?
Hi, Mark. I'm well. Yes, I'm very good. Thank you very much.
So, Will, the title of this pod is REBOOT26, and it's really interesting. We've just started the June, the 6th month, and we're just hitting 100 days of enhanced Trump chaos since that late February when everything that seemed to be planned, executing, going along really well at the start of the year began to go off the rails. It's been an interesting 100 days, hasn't it?
Yeah, I remember it well. I mean, obviously, it was a moment that the world sort of held its breath, but slightly more closer to home. I remember you were just about to take some steps to the tour that was taking place. And the first cities were Australian. And there was quite a contrast in terms of what those first experiences were like and then how the rest of the tour went. So just at that time, it was a really interesting moment for us. We were taking stock. I mean, maybe that's a good place to start, where the world was.
Look, it absolutely is. I've been back from tour for a month, so I'm human again. I've been able to weed my garden, all the clothing's washed, and I feel human, like I'm actually living in my own house. Because I had 2 months, or if you think about it, 3 meals a day for 2 months out of home. That really messes you up. But more importantly than the impact there was the people that I met. And so I went to 18 cities. And while I was in those 18 cities, I met a lot of studio principals. I met a lot of design commissioners. And what was interesting was there were 4 cities that I visited, which was Melbourne and Sydney. And that was before Trump's enhanced chaos began. And then I was in Shanghai and Shenzhen and Hong Kong. So we'll say there's 5 cities there. And what was interesting was those first 5 cities, it was pretty normal. In fact, while I was in China, Dubai and Abu Dhabi had to be taken off the agenda for us. There was this one statement that was made that changed everything. It was when America began to talk that they didn't have enough interceptor missiles for all of the drones, and they would selectively choose which drones they interrupted. Everything got very serious because all of a sudden the Iron Dome or Golden Dome, whichever one it's called these days, was meant to go and protect and save everyone. We realized there was a problem, which is the munitions that are in that system are limited and the drones are unlimited. And so that dramatically changed the way people's tone. I'm going to say it was actually people shifted from thriving mode about 2026 into survival mode. And it was, okay, we need to go and make sure that we're ready for our clients and what their changes are. But basically, it was like everyone pulled the handbrake on and the economy stopped. Projects got delayed. And that's had a massive impact for all of our studio partners. I think you've seen that too as you've been going around and meeting with people at the various design weeks that you've been at.
Yes, I would absolutely reflect that the shift from, just I suppose the kind of green shoots of some stability. I think given the nature of the disruption that the American presidency has caused over the last couple of years has been sort of priced in. We've begun to live with that sort of level of chaos and unpredictability. And then obviously, as you said, at the end of February, everything sort of changed again. To some extent, I'm not sure that design weeks, design festivals are a great bellwether. I think they create bubbles that are not necessarily true to the way the world is actually working. There's a degree of time lag behind them. But of course, the conversations with the individuals, the business people, the designers are affected because our system, be it through supply chains, be it through marketing channels, be it through global routes that have been long established, fundamentally have come under attack. So this is why this notion of reboot is quite important, because we are having to live in the status quo. And we don't quite know when that will come to pass in terms of returning to a system that's recognizable. And, I think it's really important to do this recording right now because the 100 days is always an important kind of moment
Yeah.
to take stock.
And what's really interesting about viewers, both Will and I are sailors. And one of the things that sailors do is that they set courses and they keep monitoring, are they on course or not? And I think for everybody, they set a course in late last year. It began to work. We had the Davos moment where you had Carney turn around and give us hope international trade will take place. We had all of that buoyancy, and then the wind has been taken out of our sails, and nobody is where they expected to be in June. Everybody is slightly behind. A couple of people that I've spoken to have had acceleration that have taken place, which has actually been their clients saying, we don't know what's ahead, we need to get this project finished. So that's had other effects in there, but nobody is where they expected to be. So what we want to do, and we've done this with the awards, we've done it with our leaders program, we've done it with our capitals program, is we've adjusted our time horizon. In the case of the awards, we've taken 7 of the award programs and moved them back by over 100 days so that the projects that have been delayed have an opportunity to be in the awards. We know that it's hugely valuable for people to get recognition, but wouldn't it be terrible if the project that was meant to finish in May is now finishing in August and the people couldn't nominate into the awards? So we pushed that back. And we think that that's going to help. We're trying to do what we can to go help. It's also, I'll be very frank, it's had a knock-on effect to us as far as revenue. I basically could have actually turned the site off during April and nobody would have known. It was like the site traffic just kind of disappeared. Everyone was quite distracted. We had Easter in there. There were some major trade events, but nobody was thinking about how do they gain recognition for their amazing design work, or how do they go get their executives to get more exposure and opportunity. So it was really interesting to see just the gap that was there. And then the other thing that we found was when we looked at the trade program that we've been running, we've seen this massive shift, and we saw it in Milan. You've seen it at Clerkenwell. Next week, you're going to see it at 3 Days of Design. The same thing happened at NYC by Design, which was where there used to be these 400 to 1,000 person day-long sessions of people go listen to speakers. We're now finding out that there's these fragmented, very tactical, it's 50 to 70 people who are absolutely subject matter experts exchanging and building alliances, exchanging knowledge, that this in real life micro scale event, very tactical, is coming along. And we're going to be putting a few of them together as later on in the year with our local chapters so that there's a way for people to go connect, because that human to human connection has been really, really important. But working out how to go and actually accept that the chaos is there. I know I've been waiting for 3 weeks now to hear whatever the peace deal is, which apparently is happening tomorrow, but it's been tomorrow for 3 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks. We need to actually get a strategy, which is how do we get back to where we want to be? How do we make sure that we're enforcing the work and the portfolio that we've got is coming forward? And we also need to make sure how we're encouraging our clients to understand some of the basic mechanics. I was speaking to an architect about some Middle East projects, and they've just got a fundamental problem, which is how long it takes for concrete to cure. There's things like footings that have been delayed because of the war. And there's projects that have hard dates, like Riyadh 2030 is a hard date. There's other projects that are happening in Riyadh that also are meant to be ready for 2030. And we're seeing delays in decisions. We're seeing delay in approvals. And that knock-on effect is going to have a huge impact. And what we need to make sure is that we're encouraging our leaders to be on the front foot with the clients to talk about, well, what are alternate strategies? How do you make up some time? How do you do things in parallel? But leaving them to get to a comfortable position without informed knowledge is not going to be in the best interest of the client or the studio. So, it's really important that we encourage people to go and get on that front foot rather than being caught in maybe it'll happen soon.
Yeah, I think there's some really smart thinking in there. And obviously, it relates to client relationship, decision making, the role and function of the design studio in terms of the project stages, project development, and also reassurance. I think, as much as anything, the client dynamic is as uncertain, as is the rest of the world, unless as you say, the front foot method is taken, whereby that direct response from the studio, gives confidence, demonstrates ability, and is focused on, focused on trade. It's really that simple, in as much as,
Yeah.
opportunity still exists, and it's about kind of focused attempts to make sure that the client still has the ability to reach his audience and his potential customer base.
Yeah. Well, we've got our 4 tenets for trade, which is trade, turnover, technology, and talent. That's the business of design. And we're going to do a podcast very soon with Philip Johnson, yourself, and myself, where we're digging in about trade. How do we help our leaders to focus on where there's trade development opportunities? How do they actually focus on their turnover? What technology should they be looking at? Because we've now got a much better read of what AI can do and can't do. In fact, I saw a nice little post the other day, which was AI can do whatever the client asks them to do. Therefore, designers have jobs for life because most clients don't know what they need to have done. And it was a bit cheeky, but it was also just saying, yeah, that's right. There's a value distillation process in there, that double diamond of divergent thinking, convergent thinking. We haven't seen that change. It can be supported with technology, but it's not necessarily replaced. And we also need to talk about talent. And talent is a really interesting thing where particularly in these emerging markets, there are people who have design studios there, but they don't necessarily have the seniority and they need partners to go work with them so that some of these major projects can be done with the local content, which is always great for an economy, but they're actually being able to be supported by that wisdom and expertise that gives them the seniority and depth to go and execute the projects. So that's going to be in there as our leaders report on trade. It'll come up soon. But have I missed anything about this Reboot 26? Do you think we've given people enough here that they can begin to say, yeah, I really should actually sit down and build my own checklist and work out how we reboot our program?
I think, it's a midpoint in the year and it's a very interesting moment. And as you've always said, it's what you do next that counts. And I think the next 6 months will be very interesting. What's great, I think, from Better Future perspective is that we've stepped into that change. We've presented the opportunity for studios to refocus their strategies around recognition. We will have the planner for the award programs available on site. And so therefore, I think from our perspective, it's a matter of that direct engagement. We'd be delighted to talk to studios, talk to leaders about what their methodologies are and how we can support them.
Yeah, and look, I think that's a really good thing there. And it's about putting tools and helping our studio partners so that they can be on the recognition program and they can also be on the reputation development programs that are in there. Will, it's fantastic always to share some time with you. Hopefully, as we get into the next 100 days, we're going and seeing a bounce up rather than this extended chaos that we've had for the last 100 days.
Yeah, here's hoping. Looking forward to it.
Thanks for your time, Will.